I've been looking forward to posting this video, especially because I kind of went on a little bit of a hiatus. Took a week off because I got super sick. Looking about 4 pounds leaner, probably about 10% hotter, and 50% dumber. I'm a little low on carbs. So today's video is going to be all about newbie gains. What the fuck are newbie gains? Well, to put it simply, newbie gains are pretty much like every guy's wet dream of disappearing for like 3 or 4 months and then coming back looking absolutely jacked and chiseled. It's this phase you go through when you first start getting consistent in the gym and you actually follow a good diet and training routine. A lot more on this later. And the stimulus of going to the gym and hitting your muscles is extremely novel for your body. So for some period of time, it rapidly adapts to that stimulus because it's like, what the fuck is going on? I need to make muscle or I'm gonna fucking die. And on the most extreme end of things, your genetic freaks, you can see some pretty gnarly transformations within the span of months. But as a general rule of thumb, newbie gains last about a year or two. And a year or two doesn't sound that crazy, but when I hear a year or two, that's kind of a red flag. Like, 2 years is twice as long as 1 year. That's a range difference of like 100%. What causes so much variation in this? Well, the first and most boring answer, in my opinion, is genetics. Being someone that came from a pretty rough starting point, anytime I hear the word genetics, I'm like, fuck. But despite the fact that you can't change anything about it, it is important to know about. And worst case scenario, you can just be delusional like me and pretend you have amazing genetics. So unfortunately, not everyone is Kratos. If everyone was designed to be an IFBB pro, there would probably be a lot less broccoli heads on SARMs in the gym. To give you a little bit of a better idea of what I'm talking about, here's a photo of natural Chris Bumstead at 18. At 18 years old, natural, this guy had a better physique than a lot of dudes in their early 30s on gear. And I'm not going to get into the whole like fake natty, was he lying about this argument or not, because that's not what this video is about, but TLDR, he doesn't have any reason to lie about this. So back to newbie gains, just from an actual muscle building standpoint and the overall potential of your physique throughout your lifetime, everyone's newbie gains are going to look a lot different. Two people can be doing the exact same diet and training, but over the span of a year or two, they can end up looking fairly different because of genetics. Next, we have the far more interesting part of the video, which is a more broader view of kind of how newbie gains actually work. So earlier I mentioned in the first year or two of your training, you can see some pretty dramatic growth. But I'm sure you see some people who have been training for a year or two and their physiques haven't changed that much since they started training. And if you were to have stopped watching the video 30 seconds ago, you'd probably guess, oh, he just has terrible genetics. But here's where it gets fun. I'm gonna keep it real. If you have a trash physique after training for 2 or 3 years, you haven't even gotten your newbie gains yet. I'm gonna use a little bit of an exaggerated example to make it pretty easy to follow. Mike joins the gym at 18 years old. He goes once a year. 3 years later, he tells people he's been training for 3 years. Has he actually been training for 3 years? Or has he had a gym membership for 3 years? Now, to go a little bit more into detail and paint a little bit of a more realistic picture, quick message, I've been working behind the scenes on releasing my program, and at the day I'm recording this video, I just launched a new website with some improved animations and graphics, some cool stuff. We're going for kind of like that solo leveling, anime-esque gaming kind of vibe. I think it looks pretty sick, so check it out in the description. The first link is going to be my one-on-one coaching services, where I'll personally work with you and guide you through this whole body transformation thing. And then also, I've been working on my program, which I'm now going to release on my birthday, July 14th. And if you want a 20% discount the first week it drops, you can put in your email, and on launch week, I'll send you a 20% off discount code. Back to our regularly scheduled programming. Let's say for 2 or 3 years, you have been going to the gym pretty consistently. 3 or 4 times a week. That's pretty damn good. But you don't know what progressive overload is, and your average protein intake is looking around 50 grams. Yeah, just going to the gym is going to get you progress, you're going to be healthier, you're going to look better than if you didn't go. But what I'm getting at is the other big factor here is how optimized your diet and training actually is. Someone with a perfectly executed diet follows their macros to a T every single day, slight calorie surplus, high protein intake, hits the gym 5 days a week, progressive overload, good sleep, and mindful of meal timing. Of course, this person is going to have better results than Bob, who goes to the gym twice a week after work and just uses the stationary bike. Now we're at the most interesting part. Even if you spend 2 or 3 years in the gym, you didn't really fully capitalize on your newbie gains, that's perfectly fine. Because if you start improving your diet and training and you actually optimize things like I mentioned earlier, you go from Bob to essentially living like an ideal bodybuilder kind of lifestyle. Your newbie gains aren't just affected by how long you've been going to the gym for, it's based on how far you are from your peak genetic potential. So if you've been going to the gym for 2 or 3 years and you've been doing everything wrong, it's not over for you. That rapid progress of newbie gains will start whenever you optimize things. Or if you've been training for like 3 to 5 years, like a pretty mediocre level, which to be honest is like the actual healthy, like normal person way to go about things, you can kind of have this like middle ground that again is even further complicated by genetics, where your newbie gains are almost a lot more stretched out, and instead of them lasting a year or two, they end up lasting like 3 to 5 years, just because you're going to the gym a bit more casually, which is totally fine. But you know, part of why these things are so interesting to talk about is because most people don't want that slow, like healthy, like, yeah, I just go to the gym because I'm trying to get healthy and live real long. At least with guys my age, when they start going to the gym, they don't want to get jacked in a week, they want to get jacked yesterday. Put on some doom music and blackout from caffeine. As far as my personal experience with newbie gains, I didn't really start to dial my diet and training in until about a year or like a year and a half into my transformation. So for that first year, the progress was pretty mediocre, but I did lose a lot of weight and I did put on a pretty solid amount of muscle. Then, with a lot of trial and error, increasing my calories, trying to figure the diet side of things out, some maintenance phases, a few bulks, some terribly executed bulks, some terribly executed cuts. It took me 3 years, but I am starting to figure it out. So the general idea is the further you are away from your peak genetic potential, truly like the max human specimen of what you could possibly be, the faster you're going to make progress, almost like a rubber band kind of pulling you back and snapping you closer up here. But when you start to get closer to this point, it gets harder and harder exponentially to get to that body. It's truly like a soft leveling cap in a video game. But you know, closer to those tutorial stages, you do get a double XP boost. I also want to touch on the fact that there's also kind of another form of newbie gains, where if you've been going to the gym for a while and you've made a good amount of progress, you have a decent physique, and then you just completely stop going, you stop training, or you fall off, for whatever reason your physique deteriorates. When you've attained like a certain level of your genetic potential and then you fall back down, getting back to that level again is going to be far easier because your body remembers building that muscle tissue initially, and then the second time around it's going to be able to do it much faster. This is another one of those situations where you see guys that are seemingly super out of shape just completely mutate over the span of like 6 months. Another thing that's interesting is this also applies to cutting phases. So if you lose 1 or 2 pounds of muscle in the process of cutting, when you increase your calories again and you start gaining more muscle mass, that muscle mass that you lost is going to be a lot easier to gain back than it was to initially gain it. If the video is helpful, entertaining, you learned a thing or two, go ahead and subscribe and follow me on Instagram. It signals to me that somehow people actually watch my videos. And again, if you're interested in my program or coaching, that's linked in the description. See ya!